Ms. Toastmaster, ladies and gentlemen, fellow members and guests. My name is Paananen, and today I'll be giving my fifth speech with the topic of Your Body Speaks, which focuses on how gestures, body movements, facial expressions, posture, and eye contact can make a huge difference in your presentation. The title of my speech is Speakers at Conventions, and I'll be comparing and contrasting a variety of speakers that I've heard in the last year at a number of conventions I've attended. About 9 months ago, I began a new business as an internet marketer, and besides having a number of products that I market, I also am a consultant to people who have products or services that they want to have more visibility on the internet. In order to do this business, I knew I had a number of skills that I needed to learn because I didn't know too much about it before. And part of the training I undertook to learn this occupation was to attend a number of conventions. And over the last year, I've attended about half a dozen different conventions across the country. And in the process of listening to all these speakers at the conventions, not only have I learned skills that I needed to know for internet marketing, I was also able to observe a number of speakers, some of who were very effective and some of who were very ineffective. And a lot of it made a difference on how they moved around the stage. So I hope to help you become more aware of how your body movements can make a huge difference on if your presentation is very effective and memorable, or if it's the kind that people would rather get out quickly and forget. I'll break my speech down into 3 categories of speakers I've listened to: the movers on the stage, the involvers, and the people who really didn't do too much up on the stage, the people who were a little more on the boring side. For the movers, there was one particular speaker that I remember who did a lot of silly movements on the stage. He would just kind of move his legs and arms in funny different ways, and it didn't really pertain directly to his speak, what he had to say, but it caught a lot of attention, and he would do some silly things with his leg. And in the pictures online about the convention afterwards, he would always be captured in these funny positions, and he would attract a lot of focus and attention on him, even though it wasn't directly related to what he was saying, but it was an interesting technique that he used, and something to keep in mind. There was another speaker who would walk in a huge room with a lot of people, 1,000 people or so. He would walk to one part of the stage and direct his attention to one part, and he would point to some people, and then he would walk to the different part of the stage and direct to this other segment of the audience, and have a lot of eye contact and pointing to people, and have lots of crazy gestures with his arms. And it was very effective. People were very focused on him. It's a good technique for a large crowd. Also, there's another speaker who had a lot of movement, but actually I thought to the extreme where it was a little distracted, where the speaker would pace and pace and pace and talk really, really fast, a lot of movements. And you have to be careful that it's not to the distracting point where too much pacing and too much fast talking actually distracted and kind of confused people. It was hard to follow this person. So in learning how to do body movements on the stage and such, we have to be careful that we don't overdo it. Second category of speakers were involvers, people who really involved the audience and, of course, had to use a lot of body movements to do it. One speaker, for example, would ask questions to the audience. For example, let's do this here. I'll say, who has kids? Was one of the questions. And for raising hands. So, who has kids? Okay, the first person they saw, he would take a book and he would throw it to this person, and they would grab it, and it would be a good book, that he was selling out there that people would pay money for, and people would get this book for free. And it didn't take more than 2 or 3 questions before people were jumping and answering these simple questions. I remember one of the who has kids questions was about the 3rd or 4th question he asked, and when he said, who has kids, people were jumping up, I do. Just really silly, because they knew they would get this free book that was valuable. So it was a great way of really involving the audience. Also, he would call the audience up on the stage and do a little role play. There was another guy who called the audience up on the stage a video marketer, and called people up on the stage to do some role play on how easy it was to do video introductions, and he would film them as they would introduce themselves to show the audience example of how to do it, and as a little reward he would give them a camcorder. It didn't take long before a lot of people wanted to volunteer for his little role plays. Another speaker actually went out into the audience and would look specifically to a certain person and say, "Hi, what's your name?" And he would engage in a little bit of conversation with this one person, and so everybody's attention was all around the room, and there was a lot of movement involved and a lot of personal contact, eye contact, facial expressions, and people were just totally mesmerized on the speaker. So that was another effective way, not just standing on the stage, but actually walking out into the audience, particularly if it's a large crowd. On the contrast, there were some speakers who really didn't have much body movement or gestures or facial expressions or eye contact at all. And for example, there was one person who stood at the front and talked very monotone, kind of looked down for like an hour. And people were falling asleep, people were looking at their watches, people were just kind of taking notes on the previous speaker that they didn't want to forget, and the speech was extremely hard to follow, even if you focused on trying to be aware of what the speaker was saying. It was completely ineffective, and definitely something not to do. Another speaker had a PowerPoint presentation that he had several pages on, and they were numbers. He was kind of trying to show us how to do some accounting in our business, and he had a lot of numbers on the screen, and they were really too small for the audience to see very well, and that went on for a good half hour as he was talking about this, and he was kind of moving, but he wasn't moving much, and he was just kind of pointing to this presentation, which we couldn't really see, so that was pretty ineffective and something also to be aware of. Another one also stood at the podium, similar to this other person, and definitely wasn't well versed in presentations, because that really wasn't his occupation. So, and speaking really isn't any of our occupations really either. But even when it's not our occupation, when we know that we want to give a speech sometime, you just can't stand at a podium and read off the notes and expect the audience to really pay attention, because again they'll end up kind of dozing off, they're nodding. You get a lot of that, you get a lot of this, you get a lot of looking around for a clock on the wall, and unfortunately your speech doesn't really have the impact that you intend for it to have. So that concludes my speech on different body movements in a presentation, and I have had the privilege of seeing dozens and dozens of speakers over the last year because of these skills that I've been trying to learn, and was able to see what kind of speakers were effective and memorable and which weren't, and I hope that I was able to share this with you also effectively. Thank you.